Hey, Slater Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Happy Thursday, best day of the week. We are going to focus today on cancel culture. It's actually going to be the main focus of our special tomorrow as well. So just consider this hour a long introduction. Tomorrow, we're going to focus more on the philosophical underpinnings of what this really is. And today, I just want to give a bunch of examples of it so we can see how important it is and what's going on around us. I got two quotes I want to share here from the great Thomas Sowell, who just turned 90 years old the other day. He said, the reason why many people misunderstand issues is not that these issues are complex, but that people do not want a factual or analytical explanation. What do they want? They want villains to hate and heroes to cheer. And they don't want explanations that do not give them that. I do not do this ever, but I was engaged with a little Twitter battle yesterday about that guy in Costco. Have you seen that video? We're gonna talk about that a little later in the show. And this woman said, he needs to be fired from his job, which he was. And I said, you just made up a movie in your head. You completely made up a movie in your head. And we went back and forth about it, and it stopped as soon as a fact was brought up. It was entirely about feelings. She made up stuff, got outraged at the things she made up. She felt this way, et cetera, et cetera. And as soon as I questioned a fact or brought up a fact, the conversation was over. There's no time for that. It's not about facts. It's about villains and heroes. Now, who's the villain today? Another quote from Thomas Sowell. He talked about how there was a poll done in 1964, and they asked if America was worth fighting for. 1964, 87% of black people said yes. 1964, 87%. He said, today it's doubtful if any segment of the population would give that answer that often. Why? Because today the villain is America. And the villain is everyone who doesn't agree that America is the villain. All right, how do we describe this? Oh, by the way, I just saw that the 1619 Project is like joining Oprah, they're joining forces to make movies and TV shows about America's true founding as the first slave to come over. So it's a good example of that. But let's start here. I think it's important to know, and this totally changed my paradigm a couple years ago when I first learned about this. Humans are tribal. This is, there's good and bad to this. This is our great advantage over the animals. We are not fast. We are not big, like elephants. We can't fly. We're not great swimmers. We don't have sharp claws or teeth. The advantage we have in the animal kingdom is opposable thumbs, and we can form giant tribes to hunt and to defend. That's what we got. It is essential that we have tribes physically to protect us, and also emotionally and spiritually. I think we're seeing the negative effects of not having as much tribal and human interaction with quarantine over these last couple months. Like a lot of people losing those interactions that they used to have, and you can see the emotional and spiritual consequences of that. So tribes are essential, but there's a trade-off. If you're in one tribe for safety, for physical safety, because we're still walking around acting like a saber-toothed tiger is going to kill us at any moment, right? If you're in a tribe for safety, it means someone else is in another tribe, and they're the enemy. Now, America used to be the tribe, right? It was a big tribe. 330 million Americans was a big tribe, but it worked because we had one tribe and the Soviets were the other tribe, for instance, right? We're one tribe, they're the enemy tribe. That brought us together, that united us. But today, the left preaches that in America, this tribe that is America, we are irreconcilably ununitable. How about that? Try that one. We are irreconcilably ununitable. And because of that, we make small and horrible and racist to our core. So we make smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller tribes within America. The left is constantly making new tribes and then picking fights with other tribes. And that's what we're seeing today. That's intersectionality and a lot of other things. Cancel culture. Why does that exist? Okay, so that's point one, tribes. So what is cancel culture in that paradigm? Cancel culture is one way that we build up our tribe and that we prove loyalty within it. One of our guests tomorrow is going to be Rob Henderson at Cambridge. Love Rob. And he quoted this the other day. He said, cancel culture allows people to identify who is loyal to their movement. Targets of cancel culture usually commit acts suddenly deemed out of fashion. This is perfect for social coordination because it creates disagreement about whether the person should be exiled. If everyone agreed that the target should be denigrated, then there's no way to identify friend from foe. But if some agree while others disagree, committed group members can be distinguished from adversaries. Those who ask for evidence of the alleged wrongdoing, or question the severity of the transgression, or debate the propriety of cancel culture, risk revealing themselves as unfaithful to the cause. Rallying around a morally ambiguous transgression and seeing how people react permits recruitment of assenters and targeting of dissenters. Okay, break that down. Let's say a police officer, gets out of his car and shoots a black kid in the head for no reason whatsoever, gets back in his car and drives off. Okay? Just because we hear about it's like open season, right? So let's say a cop pulls over, shoots a black 8-year-old in the head, and then drives away. There would be no outrage culture over that because everyone would agree that that's evil and like the worst thing ever. There would be no disagreement. So there's no benefit to the tribe. There's no way in that story to identify who's in my tribe and who the enemy is because we all agree. So people make up trivial outrages to see who is loyal to my tribe or not. So someone who's black will say, oh, you're not gonna believe it. I was just a victim of the worst racism ever. And people are like, oh my gosh, like what happened to you? Tell me what happened. Well, I went into a store at the same time as a white person, and the store clerk helped the white person first. Pick a side. Pick a side right now. Was that racist what the store clerk did? Was that racist? Is the store clerk racist for helping the white person first? If you think so, then you have proven your allegiance to her tribe, or that black person's tribe. If you do not think it was racist, you have identified yourself as the enemy. The more ridiculous the accusation, the more loyalty you are proving. Now, I should also note that if a black person and a white person walk into a store at the same time and the store employee helps the black person first, then that can be racist too, because the employee wants the black person to leave the store faster. Okay? So either way, it's racist. That doesn't matter. The point is you have to agree or disagree and prove your allegiance either way. Right? You have to agree with the person who feels aggrieved, no matter how slight the slight. And people make this stuff up to see how loyal you are to them and to the movement in general. This is one reason why people make stuff up. It's also one reason why people feel the need to cave at all, because they still want to be in that tribe. So Aunt Jemima is like one example. There's a billion examples every single day, but like the Aunt Jemima thing, people made that up, right? Like, oh, I'm so outraged by Aunt Jemima's, right? People made that up to seem super woke. Look how discerning I am about the racism that's everywhere around us all the time. Look how woke I am. I can see it everywhere. Aren't I amazing? I am so woke. I'm even offended by Aunt Jemima. That proves their loyalty to the cause, right? But you got to join in. And people do, because they don't want to be seen as disloyal to the cause. No one has the courage to stand up and say, what are you talking about? Stop pretending to be a victim all the time. You're being ridiculous. Another example, this is like right in the beginning of all this a couple weeks ago. There was this push to only buy things online from Black-owned businesses like on Etsy and stuff like that. And a Black woman complained that this created too much work for her. And it made her feel like she was a slave working for her white masters. Okay? That's a test. That's a test. First of all, she's aggrieved. She's proven her group, her membership to the aggrieved tribe, right? But it's a test for you. She made this up to prove whether or not you're going to be loyal to her. And I'm sure her friends, I say friends because like a true friend should tell the truth, right? But I'm sure her so-called friends fell for it and told her, how sorry. I am so sorry that this is happening to you. I'm so sorry that you have so much business and you have to work so hard for the white man. I'm so sorry. It's important to know that this has deep tribal roots because you can't, it's just human nature. You can't not have people be tribal, and it's going to happen. The question is, what are people going to be tribal about? And what are people going to form tribes based on? And like, how are we going to form our tribe? And then what's the out tribe? So again, we used to have an American tribe united around common principles and values and stories. But progressivism today, intersectionality, critical theory today says that that's impossible and wrong. You're not allowed to unite. You can't. You're evil. You're the problem. That doesn't seem like the sign of a healthy society. So reject it on its face. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. Tomorrow we have a special on cancel culture. And today's show is just a long introduction to that and why this matters for us to understand what the heck is going on. A week or two ago, we talked with Hans Feeney, Pastor Hans Feeney. I love talking to him so much. And you can check out that episode on our app. When was it, guys? You said the 29th, maybe? So we have all of our archived shows on the app. Just download the First TV app in the App Store and everything's right there. So please go back and watch Hans Feeney. I've listened to it 3 times because he's awesome. But the point he made was that everyone is looking for righteousness, and the religion of the progressive left is wokeism. And people in this cult are looking for righteousness. And one way to do that is to be a victim. So I got a couple examples of that. The LA Times wrote this ridiculous article about a talent agency in LA called Digital Brand Architects. It's a smaller company. They're now owned by the big giant United Talent Agency. This company wrote an Instagram post about how they support Black Lives Matter, whatever. So the LA Times wrote this hit piece with 3 former Black employees about how racist this company really is, right? So this company comes out and they say they support Black Lives Matter, but I know what the truth is. So the LA Times wrote this huge expose about this company. So I can't wait to find out what happened. Right. So I read this whole article. I needed to know what these accusations were really all about. So here's one of them. An experienced brand manager, Black woman, said a boss rebuffed her ideas and fired her after only 1 month on the job. That's story 1. So that's racism. Now, I wasn't there. I don't know this woman. Maybe she had terrible ideas. Could that possibly be the case? That she had terrible ideas? No, has to be racist, because everything is. There's a 25-year-old receptionist who worked there, Black woman. By the way, 90% of they had 60 employees and 90% of them were women. All right, so she was the only Black person in the 12-person New York City office, and she said she felt marginalized. That's the buzzword you hear all the time. I feel marginalized. So what's her example? LA Times. This is a news article about this. She was at an event and she was asked to check in. She's 25. She's 25 now. I don't know. Maybe she was even younger at the time. But she was asked to check in guests to this networking event at some rooftop event in Manhattan. And after she checked people in, there were 3 people of her level, and she was told to staff the door for the rest of the night while the white assistants could go and network. Okay. so she was treated like a slave. So this is an actual quote from the article. Quote, this is her, quote, so basically now, there's your first sign. Whenever you hear someone use the word basically, like flags on the field. Right? Like, oh, you're just making stuff up now. Right? This is purely your very inaccurate interpretation of what happened when you say the word basically to start it off. Essentially is kind of a problem too. You're usually going to get a bad interpretation when someone says essentially, but basically, like, all bets are off. So basically, like, go downstairs, handle the tickets, because there's no reason for you, black person, to be in this room networking. That's how it felt. Now, I am certain there is more to that story, but that's how it felt. And in postmodernism, that's all you need. There is no reality. There is no logic. There is only how you feel. That's all that exists, and that's all that matters. So the article goes on and talks about how she was so distraught at being fired that she needed medical treatment to treat stomach problems and had $10,000 in medical bills. And then the article brought in her parents. Okay, she's 25. She's 25. And her parents, her mom, said, I just could not believe what they had taken from my daughter. What? Why? What? Why are you bringing in her mommy? What is that? Remember, years back, we would share these stories of professors who would give a student a bad grade, and the student would come marching in. This is in college. The student would come marching in with the cell phone and say, here, talk to my mom. And the mom would berate the professor into giving her precious child a taller grade. That's this right here. What do you like? Why would the LA Times even reach out to the mommy? I promise you, if I'm ever fired from the First, my mom will not make a statement to anyone about it. Certainly not the local paper. Ridiculous. All right, so that gives you an idea probably of what kind of employee she was too. Third employee, all right? So you with me so far? This is LA Times worthy article about how racist this horrible company is. There's another employee. She's a 40-year-old Harvard graduate. So you can see how aggrieved she is, how oppressed she is having been a graduate of Harvard. She often worked alone with no lunch break out of a West Hollywood duplex that her boss owned. Wow. That one's bad. I know I've been taking a mocking tone about the first two, but that one's pretty bad. She often, not always, often worked alone. No lunch break. And she also said that her boss didn't listen to her ideas. It's terrible. I am sharing stories here of very entitled, emotionally weak people. How else can you possibly interpret that? And why would the LA Times write a newspaper article about that? So I'm reminded of a story of Booker T. Washington. He went on a 500-mile journey, mostly on foot, to a school that he wanted to go to. By the way, this was right after he was enslaved for the first 9 years of his life and then worked in salt mines for the next how many years. But he wanted to go to school in Richmond, Virginia. I should say, the school is called Hampton. And on the way there, he stopped in Richmond, Virginia. And no one would let him stay at their hotel or eat in their restaurants because he was black. He said, my whole soul was so bent upon reaching Hampton, this school, that I did not have time to cherish any bitterness toward the hotel keeper. Okay? Former slave, not allowed to stay in a hotel or eat at the restaurant. Even he couldn't have any bitterness. Yet here's a woman who's like, well, I didn't get any lunch break. And she has bitterness that she has to go to the LA Times about it. All right. This is Booker T. Washington. So what did he do? He couldn't go to the hotel. I must have walked the streets till after midnight. At last, I became so exhausted that I could no longer walk. I was tired. I was hungry. I was everything but discouraged. Just about the time when I reached extreme physical exhaustion, I came upon a portion of a street where the board sidewalk was elevated. I waited for a few minutes till I was sure that no passerbys could see me, and then crept under the sidewalk and lay for the night upon the ground with my satchel of clothing for a pillow. Nearly all night, I could hear the tramp of feet over my head. The next morning, I went at once to the vessel, the docks, and asked the captain to permit me to help unload the vessel in order to get money for food. The captain, a white man who seemed to be kind-hearted, consented. I worked long enough to earn money for my breakfast, and it seems to me, as I remember it now, to have been about the best breakfast that I've ever eaten. Years after, the people of Richmond invited me to give a speech. The reception was held not far from that spot where I slept that first night, and I must confess that my mind was more upon the sidewalk that gave me first shelter than upon the recognition, agreeable and as cordial as it was. So I want you ladies to go ahead and tell Booker T. Washington that my boss not listening to my ideas is so racist. But people are looking for meaning. People are looking for righteousness. People are looking to be a part of a tribe. Like, I'm a victim of racism too. Oh yeah, what happened? My boss didn't give me a lunch break. I gotta go here. I don't have time to share the story. Reason had an article, Reason.com had an article yesterday that they said psychopathic, manipulative, and narcissistic people are the more frequent signalers of virtuous victimhood. Psychopathic, manipulative, and narcissistic people. We should stop letting these people be in charge of the culture and the conversation in America. I'm just gonna blow through this story. I'm not gonna give this the credit that it deserves at all. If you ask someone about cancel culture, they'll be like, oh yeah, those are people who like wear blackface. Or those are people who say something racist. Or those are people who do something wrong. No. First of all, there's no time limit. The vice president of communications at Boeing wrote an article 33 years ago about women in combat. He was a fighter pilot himself. And he wrote 33 years ago about women in combat, and he was forced to resign. Who even found that? So there's no time. It could be something you said years and years and years ago, decades ago. No statute of limitations. Also, it doesn't even have to be you who says the thing. One of my favorite stories is there's a hummus manufacturer in Minneapolis whose landlord pulled the lease because of something racist his daughter wrote on Facebook when she was 14, 8 years ago. Okay, so it's not only a matter of time, but it doesn't even have to be you. It could be a family member who says something, or even someone that you're just associated with. But here's the worst of them all, because this is a story of someone not even saying anything, or not even being accused of anything. John T. Edge, he's the head of the Southern Food Alliance. So it's like a group of chefs and food critics, and so there's 800 people who are part of this group. And this guy's being called, it's called for him to resign. Why? What did he do? He's white. Let's throw this up here, actually, guys. This is the New York Times. They say he's a kingmaker. They say he's a white man, however charming, who has too much power over who tells the story of food in a region where so much of the cuisine was created by enslaved people. So the head of Bon Appetit magazine he left because some brown face, he just was like a Puerto Rican baseball player or something on Halloween years back. He left. But this guy, he didn't do anything. He didn't say anything. He's just white. He's white. The article tells the story of some Indian chef who writes about like the similarities between Indian food and Southern food. She was a part of an event at one of the Southern Food Alliance's big conferences or whatever called Brown in the South. And she said, you are a prop in what felt like a dog and pony show. Judge me for the excellence I bring to the table. I'm not here because you decided I needed to be here, blah, blah, blah. So that's a damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Point is, no more white people in charge of anything. Some chef said, when you look at the history of the Southern Food Alliance, it's built on black stories. And you can't have a white person in charge of black stories like that, okay? Now, there's no conversation from any of these people about starting their own group, right? Just like none of the Marxist rioters are building statues. They're just ripping statues down, and it's all about ripping people down. Cancel culture will never end until we stand up against these psychopathic, manipulative narcissists. True story, Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, I got one more example of, or one more problem with cancel culture as a long introduction to our special coming up tomorrow, where we have 3 amazing guests. Also, we got Leo Terrell coming up in a little bit too, because he's in the process of being canceled right now. There's a strong dehumanizing going on right now with cancel culture that I'm sort of sensing. So have you seen this Costco video? Right, I'm sure you've seen this video of a guy, and he's kind of like coming at someone. He says, "I feel threatened. Like, back off, back off." Now, we don't know why. We don't know what happened. I got a Twitter conversation with someone about it, and they're like, "Have you seen the video?" I was like, "Yeah, I saw all 17 seconds of it, okay?" 17 seconds. You've made up everything about it that you're getting upset about. We think it had something to do with a mask. No idea. But in those 17 seconds, it looks bad for him. Now, you've been here long enough, and we've done this long enough, that I hope you're able to watch a video like this and form no judgment about it. Because any judgment you make about it is a movie you've made up in your head. No one knows anything about the context at all. We were told he was attacking an old lady, but I don't see an old lady. Who knows? I don't know. Someone just made that up. So anyway, this video got out there, and a bunch of people started to find him. And they found his LinkedIn account, and they got him fired from his insurance job in Florida. The insurance company wrote some blowhardy statement. They said, "They do not represent our values," which is a weird formulation. Like, why would you use the word they for a single person, right? They do not represent our values as opposed to he. Anyway, so the mob ruined this guy's livelihood, right? They ruined his family's livelihood. Surely his health insurance was connected to his job. So that's all gone. You have no idea what his or his family's health situation was. And now he's toxic for who knows how long before anyone else dare hire him again. So there's some liberal, like a classic liberal, a good liberal, who went on Twitter and said, "Guys, this is not a healthy thing that we're doing here." And someone wrote back, they said, "Hard blanking disagree. Name one reason this idiot should continue to be anyone's coworker, boss, or employee. Let his whole world burn. Let his whole world burn." And the good liberal said, "Whoa, oh, guys, punishment should be administered carefully and allow for rehabilitation." No, there's no room for that in the woke religion. No room for that in the cult. In this cult, it has every aspect of a religion except for forgiveness and redemption. So there's no room for rehabilitation. No, you got to let it all burn. Let his whole world burn. Because no one's human anymore. No one's an individual. Remember yesterday we did a whole philosophical overview of pre-Enlightenment values, Enlightenment values, and postmodern values. And one of the Enlightenment values is about individuality and the value of the individual. And one of the postmodern values is there's no such thing as an individual. You're only a member of a group. And this guy's group, white guy, is evil and must be destroyed. Let his whole world burn. It's the exact same toxic ideology that a lot of people had against black people, treating them as subhuman. This is nothing new. It's a tale as old as time, and it's happened all over the world. There's a book called Children of Cambodia's Killing Fields. It's a collection of writings from survivors of the Khmer Rouge. These are the communists in Cambodia in 1975 to 1979. Now, you're saying, "Gee, Slater, that escalated quickly." Before you say I'm exaggerating, first, it's important to know where we could go, because you don't want to go anywhere near this or even start moving in that direction. But also, as Rob Henderson said, and again, we're going to talk to him tomorrow, he said China, Cambodia, Russia, Korea, very different countries with very different traditions, far older than America, but one single idea managed to capture all of them and erase their histories. One single idea, very different peoples, different cultures, but one single idea managed to capture all these people and erase their histories. What's that idea? Utopianism. And one aspect of utopianism is actually dehumanization. So one of these survivors says that the Khmer Rouge said they were creating a utopian nation where everyone would be equal. You heard that before? They restarted everything at zero, right? And so did the French Revolution. We've talked a lot about that. And that's what cancel culture is doing today too. Not only are we progressing into the future, but we're destroying every aspect of the past as well. So this guy was 15 in 1975 when the communists took over. He said, "I can still remember how overwhelmed with joy I was that the war had finally ended. It did not matter who won. I and many Cambodians wanted peace at any price. I wonder today how many Americans want comfort at any price. I feel like comfort would be the ultimate value that people would do anything for and give up anything for, even their freedom. At the time, we did not realize how high the price was that we had to pay for the Khmer Rouge's peace. The Khmer Rouge were very clever and brutal. Their tactics were effective because most of us refused to believe their malicious intentions. Their goal was to liberate us. They risked their own lives and gave up their families for justice and equality. They encouraged children to find fault with their own parents and spy on them. We see that today as well. You boomer, you're not woke enough. They openly showed their intention to destroy the family structure that once held love, faith, comfort, happiness, and companionship. Same thing today. Black Lives Matter. Root out the nuclear family. They took young children from their homes to live in a commune so that they could indoctrinate them. There's plenty of that indoctrination going on as well. But here's the part I really wanted to read. Human life wasn't even worth a bullet. They clubbed the back of our necks and pushed us down to smother us and let us die in a deep hole with hundreds of other bodies. They told us we were void. Ooh, canceled. We were less than a grain of rice in a large pile. The Khmer Rouge said that the communist revolution could be successful with only 2 people. Our lives had no significance to their great communist nation, and they told us, to keep you is no benefit, to destroy you is no loss. Compare that with the Christian value, the Christian ethic, where every life is of intrinsic value. Every human is a child of God, every single one. So you can see the difference, can you? Remember, we did the whole overview yesterday of pre-Enlightenment, Enlightenment, and postmodern values. And that's one of them. That's one of the majorly pre-Enlightenment values, that every life has worth. And one of the postmodern values is no life has worth. And there you see it right there. To destroy you is no loss. He had another line, he said, we hated ourselves and each other, and we trusted no one. Same thing here with cancel culture, and everyone's miserable. But that's what they were doing. They said they were creating a utopian nation where everyone could be equal. Now, in America, no one's killing anyone yet. But anytime we're dehumanizing people, and anytime you hear stuff like, let his whole world burn, it doesn't have a great track record. Coming up, Leo Terrell. He's got his own he's in the midst of a bit of a cancellation of himself. Talk with him coming up next. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, I want to go to a friend of our show and a man who is on fire right now and sort of in the midst of being canceled himself. The Leo Terrell, a civil rights attorney, and that's his Twitter handle as well. Please follow him there, The Leo Terrell. Mr. Terrell, how are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me, Mike. Glad to be here.
Good to talk to you, brother. So before we get to, and you wrote on your Twitter, you said Leo 2.0. So before we get to what you've been saying lately that's been getting you in trouble, you mentioned in one of your Newsweek piece that you haven't been booked on places you've been booked in the past, and you're sort of in the midst of being canceled. Tell us what's going on.
Well, I'll tell you right now, there's this understanding that black people speak in one voice. In other words, an Al Sharpton speaks for all black Americans. That's not true. I have my own opinion. I've been a civil rights attorney for 25, 30 years. And my point is simply this. I don't agree with Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter does not care about all black lives. There was an exchange between Don Lemon and Terry Crews the other day where Don Lemon said black lives only cares about lives involving police officers, killing blacks. Well, that means they don't care about black on black crime. They don't care if a black police officer gets murdered like David Dorn. And I'll have no part of that. And if just being upfront and honest means that I'm going to be canceled by other network, I can sleep well at night. I have no problem with that.
On that Don Lemon point, it was so weird when he told Terry Crews, he's like, hey, Terry, if you have a problem with black on black crime, start your own organization. But Black Lives Matter is solely, as you said, about police officers killing black people. That seems odd, doesn't it?
that is, let me just simply say this. I want to make sure everyone hear this. Black Lives Matter has done an outstanding job of giving a false perception that they care about Black people. If you read their manifesto, they're an extremist group. They're calling for the denuclearization of the family unit, defunding police. It is a nightmare. And most law-abiding citizens, 90% of all colors, do not support Black lives. But however, they have used the Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson playbook and have hijacked corporations, shaking them down for money with this image that they care about all Black people. It is clear, based on what Don Lemon said, based on my knowledge, they only care of a few individuals. And if you don't agree with them, then you're not with them. Well, I'm glad to say I'm not with them.
What was one thing in particular that really made you speak out strongly about this and really see the truth of what the Black Lives Matter movement's all about? Was there one particular instant?
Yeah, the biggest concern I had was this extremist position, and it continues to just irk me, of defunding the police. I can't get that out of my mind. A couple of reasons. A personal reason, family members that I have are in law enforcement. Now, let me be clear. I've sued law enforcement for 25 years. Big cases, huge cases. I've gone after bad police officers. But when they're talking about not funding police department, and let me be clear, you will never be able to please Black Lives Matter on the issue of funding the police. They don't want police. They don't want police. They don't want any law enforcement officers to protect you or me, Mike, at 2 and 3 in the morning. They want the total destruction of certain American institutions. I don't call for that.
Yeah, we did a story yesterday of, a lot of these police departments are replacing police officers with certain calls with social workers. So I read this article about how now they're saying social workers are rooted in racism. And even that's an institution that's not good enough.
Mike, please let me say this. This is so important. I want to destroy this myth, this lie. There is not systemic discrimination in this country. This is not 1960. We don't have Bull Connor. You have Black people, brown people running major cities, Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Los Angeles, running by Black police chiefs, Black mayors. This is a shakedown. There is no systemic discrimination, and I will challenge anyone to tell me that you have systemic discrimination in big-time Democratic cities. That's a lie.
So that's, Mr. Terrell, that's a huge claim because that is the number one argument that the Black Lives Matter people are making, right? So that's a huge claim you say. So let me push back. Let me try to channel Black Lives Matter. Okay, the criminal justice system has a disproportionate number of Black people in jail, which so that proves that Black people are being targeted, and that destroys the family because all these Black men are in jail. What do you say? That's systemic racism.
I say that is true to the extent of Democrats like Joe Biden with his 1994 crime bill. If you want to give kudos, President Trump with his first step trying to undo that. I mean, a Republican trying to undo what Democrats have claimed that they monopolized civil rights. So I will submit to you that there is a disproportionate high number of African Americans in the criminal justice system. Let's be fair. There's a higher percentage of African Americans who commit crimes. So let's not deny that. But what person has tried to change that? President Trump. He won't get credit because he has a big R on his name. It's Republican. And the Democrats think that they own the issue of civil rights.
Why do white people fall for this? All of it.
It's called white guilt. It's not white privilege, it's white guilt. You have what I call fake West Side liberals who talk a good game about civil rights. And a lot of them are in the Democratic Party. They talk a good game, but these are the same people you can't live next to. They won't let you marry their daughter, and they won't give you a promotion. But they talk a good game of civil rights. And let me be clear. I have been a civil rights attorney for 25 years. I'm on the left side of the Democrats. However, the Democratic Party lost me when they talk about defunding police and when you have Democrats and people of color controlling major cities. No one can answer that.
Yep. I'm sure for decades too, for like 70 years. I'm sure you've seen the video. It's an old video of Morgan Freeman, and he's on some show, and the guy asked him about racism, and he said, well, I'll stop referring to you as a white man, and you stop referring to me as a black. All right, let's just stop picking at this scab that is racism and keeping it bleeding. How do you, so what I'm referring to, I guess, is like a colorblind society. So how do you, Leo Terrell, think of that? Like, do you view me as white? Should I view you as black? Or should you view me as Mike and I view you as Leo, right? How do you work that out in your mind?
Ideally, the latter. I should look at you as Mike. You should look at me as Leo without color. I have been a civil rights attorney for over 25 years. I believe in a colorblind society. I'm not a fool. Racism has existed since the beginning of mankind. It will be here when you and I are no longer on this planet. We are race conscious, and that is just a fact. It's never going to go away. So I'm just going to be honest with you. We can try to improve it, but the elimination, impossible.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yet, you feel that we should still strive to be as colorblind as possible?
Oh, absolutely. Look, we're in the greatest country on this planet. We're the greatest. People want to come here. We are a melting pot. We have a diversity that is so rich and unique. That's what makes me proud to be an American. But we have the problems and the ills of discrimination and racism. It exists systematically. We had a black president, a black attorney general. We got people of color in Congress. Come on. We got black folks running companies. We got Oprah. We got LeBron. Are you kidding me? Systematic discrimination, 1960 all over again. Come on, Mike. Come on.
Let me push back on this. Let me do devil's advocate again here, because you can crush this. Those people you just brought up, LeBron, Oprah, Black Lives Matter will say, those are anomalies, and also those are just black people who are there for white people's entertainment, right? So in a way, our athletes are just kind of like slaves on the plantation, the white plantation anyway, and they're just our entertainers. But black people don't really have the strings of power. That's what they would say. What do you say to that?
I said, look, the one of the biggest roots of discrimination, racism, is economics. Money eliminates a lot of racism. And I will submit to you the following. There's a lot of millionaire black folks in sports, in entertainment, in politics. A president 8 years. If they use their economic power, and I'm going to tell you right now, the civil rights issue is education and get more people of color in professions like a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher. That's where the civil rights issue is. I'm sick of big, wealthy African Americans giving donations. Build better schools. Public schools suck. Charter schools, private school. The reason why I'm on this show with you is because I have a bachelor's degree, I have a master's degree, I have a law degree. And that's why you want me on this program. I'm smart. Yeah. I am a contributor to this country. I am self-employed. I'm not government dependent. Very simple.
So good. Last question for you, sir. We did a segment the other day on personal responsibility. I want to ask you this from your perspective as a civil rights attorney who's seen, you're in the justice system. You've seen people make bad decisions. Speak to that, your experience of personal responsibility as a civil rights attorney.
What I'm saying here is that I believe that the government is not the end all be all to help people. I think people have to take personal responsibility. Within the criminal justice system, there are changes that need to take place. The biggest problem is simply this. The people who are in power, they keep the system working, and it has a tendency to disadvantage people. For example, we're talking about the criminal justice system. Please have an independent prosecutor to prosecute bad cops. Don't let the district attorney who's in bed with police officers to prosecute officers. Change the system. work within the system, but realize the system has some inherent flaws. And we could do that because we got people of all colors running this system.
Listen, I liked Leo 1.0, and I also like Leo 2.0. You're speaking truth, Mr. Terrell, and I'm grateful for you. Civil rights attorney, Twitter, the Leo Terrell, 2 R's, 2 L's, Terrell. Mr. Terrell, it's an honor, sir. Appreciate you.
Mike, thank you. Love
Have
it.
a superb day. We'll do it again. That's
All
it.
right,
We're done. We got our big
you.
special tomorrow about cancer culture. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word.